Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video on the ownership costs and reliability issues that I've had on our E93 M3. And I've had this car for almost 3 years now, so I wanted to share my experience and see if this is helpful to anyone else out there who may be interested in buying one for themselves, whether it's an E93 convertible or the V8 M3 found on the E90X chassis. Do a quick walk around and show you guys what's been changing lately. Okay, let's start with interior wear. So this car has 120,000 miles on it. There's the wear so far on the interiors. You'll definitely tell right here. It's starting to peel a little bit, the protective layer. So this is something that I might address later down the line by kind of peeling off the rest of this and just getting it to match. And you'll see the same issue over here behind the seat. And now you can see right here behind the chair that the material is all scratched up and starting to fade a little bit from the sun. Here's the seats. Surprisingly not too bad. It's been a while since I've conditioned the leather. I probably should do that, but nothing too major there. This trim here is not originally black. This is Plasti Dip. This is about 3 years old. One of the first mods I did on this car was blacking out the chrome, and you can see it still looks good up close. Surprisingly, the Plasti Dip holds up really well. I do have a little bit of a A-pillar leak right around here in the inside, so when you wash the car there's like maybe 5 or so drips that come down, and it's the same on the passenger side. So I might need to replace this seal or find a way to fix this eventually so that it doesn't leak further. Moving to the rear, I have some battery tenders connected to my battery because I have the issue sometimes where the battery discharges too quickly, and that's because I'm running a smaller battery than needed. Usually you need an H7 or H8, and I'm running an H6 battery because it's lighter, so I went for the lightweight savings. This small battery isn't really worth the weight savings if you have to keep on charging it all the time. These are my rear rotors. Don't think they've ever been changed. There's a big lip on them in the back, so that's something that I'm going to have to replace later down the line. So far, I haven't had any issues with them. And here's my front rotors. This one does not have a lip on it. These are in good condition for the front rotors. You'll also notice I have these tire pressure monitor caps or valve stem caps because the stock tire pressure monitor system doesn't work anymore and it keeps giving me errors. I didn't like seeing the error on the dash all the time, so I coded it out, and now I have a tire pressure reader inside the car that tells me exact tire pressure and temperature of each wheel. Now let's take you inside the engine bay, and I can tell you everything that I've done as far as maintenance and repairs. These hood struts over time can fail and eventually allows the hood to fall on your head while you're working on the car. So I recommend changing these out if you're of high mileage and you notice that the hood starts to sag a little bit. Very easy to change out. I also have a video on how to do that. But for now, the replacement I have is too strong, so I only have one hood strut instead of two, because this is designed for your regular E9X, which doesn't have a lightweight aluminum hood, unlike the M3 hood, which is lightweight aluminum. So you only need one of these instead of two. One of the first thing I did was changing to this style of oil filler cap, because this one I have found not to leak, and you can see right here there's no leaks on that. This one just has a thicker gasket, plus I think it looks cooler, so I can leave a link in the description if you want to get one for yourself as well. You also have to make sure you scrape off any old paint that might have peeled off, and that's probably why you're not getting a seal on there as well. This valve cover that I have here, I painted it myself using wrinkle black paint, and so far it's holding up really well. No leaks on the valve cover gasket itself. I changed that out myself, and I have a video on how to do that. I also did the spark plugs, each one. The coils, I still have stock coil packs because they're very expensive to replace, so if they ever do go bad, I'm going to replace them with OEM ones, but if they ain't broke, you don't need to fix them. Looking down here, I have the Mach Schnell underdrive pulley kit, which means that I was able to change the pulleys and upgrade at the same time. I did that a while back and I have a video on that. All the way down there, buried below the intake, is alternator. The alternator eventually was going out intermittently, so sometimes it would charge the battery and sometimes it wouldn't. And since it's high mileage, I figured might as well get it done because I don't want to be stranded. If the alternator goes bad, you're going to be stranded out on the road. Might as well get that replaced, and I have a video on how to do that as well. I'll link in the description for you guys. Hopefully you find it helpful. I've also had the rod bearings replaced with BE bearings and ARP rod bolts. So that is something that I did as one of the first things when I bought this car because I didn't want to have to deal with any engine damage. I don't know what the previous owners have done with this car and how they started it and how their warm-up procedure was, but ever since I've had that done, I've always followed a warm-up procedure involving driving the car until it gets up to temperature and not revving past 3,000 RPM. Pretty simple. This is my power steering reservoir. A little bit of a leak right here, you can see that. Very common with these stock ones, but EAE Lab has a great solution for you guys if you were willing to change this out. Pressure tested theirs and so far no leaks with theirs, so hopefully I can get that done later down the line. Maybe make a video on it and see if this leak can finally be fixed. But I haven't wiped this in months and this is what it looks like. It's pretty shiny, but it's not too bad. Yours may actually have liquid coming out, but luckily mine is just seeping out. I did have an issue once where the radiator fan cracked. It's this portion right here, this portion that holds all the blades together. That cracked and caused a vibration inside the car that you could feel when the fan was spinning really quickly. So instead of replacing the whole entire unit itself, which is about $1,100 or $1,200, I just replaced the fan itself, which is much cheaper. Any N55 fan, as far as I've understood on the forums, works. So if you can just grab an N55 fan for 150 bucks, you can get this to fit. I also installed Vanos covers on the gears because I didn't want the plastic ones breaking and ending up in the oil pan, clogging the oil pickup tube. So did that for peace of mind while I changed out the valve covers. I got mine from Euro Power Motorsports, and so far I'm really enjoying them. The peace of mind is really wonderful, along with having the rod bearings done. And I also did throttle actuators, which are below the plenum. The throttle actuators I went with are also from Euro Power Motorsports. They're the upgraded ones with a lifetime warranty, so you never have to worry about those going bad. And if they do, free replacements. Also, underneath the plenum, I changed out the starter because there was occasional times where the car was warm and the car wouldn't start. It would just have this clicking noise when you push the start button. So I have a video on how to replace the starter on this car. I recommend it if you're, higher mileage like mine. It's not too bad to do as a DIY, and I do have a video on how to do it. Right above the idle control valve, I replaced my fuel breather valve, and the fuel breather valve is something that goes bad over time as well. You'll get some rough idles, especially when the tank is full, like when you just filled up your gas tank. You might have some rough idles then, and that's most likely your fuel breather valve that needs to be changed out. Also, while under the plenum, you can change out your injectors. I changed out the injectors because that's another thing that I heard can go bad on these cars, and when it does, you can have catastrophic engine damage, meaning you'll need a new engine, so might as well replace them. And I did all 8. Another thing that you can also do is once you've done those, maybe add an inline fuel filter and it goes right over here. And so EAE Labs is going to have a product coming out soon that goes in on this line. It's an inline fuel filter, which should help prolong the life of your injectors so that you don't have to worry about your engine becoming toast if you have a stuck injector. I changed my brake fluid pretty recently, and it makes a big difference on how the brakes feel. So if you have spongy brakes or a spongy brake pedal, I definitely recommend flushing out the brakes fluid and using brand new fluid. I changed out the brake pads to Hawk 5.0 ceramic brake pads, and I really enjoy them. Not too much brake dust, as you can see right here, and stopping power is much better than the original brakes that these Brembos came with. So this is my upgraded headlights that I have done because I had a leak issue where water was getting inside of the headlight housing and causing fogging, and eventually it fried the ballast. And if the headlight ballast goes bad, you're not going to have low beams anymore. So this driver's side had a headlight ballast go out because the water was pooling up from the leakage. So I had to reseal it, and you can seal it through here, going all the way around. You have to remove the front bumper and the headlights. I have a video on the process that I did to reseal it without taking the lens off of the actual headlight housing. And very happy with these new ones. They also have carbon fiber on the inside, which I think is a nice touch. I have this here as an extension of the cigarette lighters, and it has a screen here that tells me the battery voltage, which right now is kind of low because I have a small battery on this car that I need to change out. This is also where I put my TPMS monitor, and you can see my right front tire is a little low, so I'm going to need to top that off. And also an update on my huge 13-inch Android screen with CarPlay. I am really enjoying this, haven't had any issues with it, works really well. You can use the iDrive knob, wonderful. You can go use your front camera so that you don't hit curbs. That's my front camera. And you have the CarPlay and everything else going on. So overall, very satisfied with this. I like that you can use the touchscreen and you can reach it easily without having to go all the way into that recessed area of your double hump. When the car is cold, like very cold, and you did a cold start in the morning and turned on the heater or the air conditioner, you would hear a squeaking noise coming from the vents, and that was because the blower motor under here, the blower motor fan hasn't been greased up in a while, so I have a video on how to remove that and grease up the bearings again so that they don't make that funny squeaking noise through the vents when it's cold. Next thing I can talk about is right below the car, the oxygen sensors. I didn't have any issues with them per se, more so the oxygen sensor heater, but it never really affected how the car drove. It was just a shadow code that I would get. The oxygen sensor heater circuit, there was a short circuit or something of that nature, so it was an electrical issue and it didn't really affect the car. It didn't even give me a check engine light. It was just a hidden code on my scanner. But I did realize that one thing I had to do was just bend the pins to fix that issue, so I didn't even need to buy new oxygen sensors. I have a video on how I fixed that issue. I'll also put it in the description. Let's talk about the rear differential. I haven't had a leak issue with them yet, but if you do, they tend to happen around the pinion seal and the axle seals. So any kind of seals in there, you can replace them if you have any leaks. I'm hoping I don't have any, but last time I checked, it was dry under there. Let's talk about the DCT transmission. This one, some people have some issues with. Sometimes the DCT overheats. Sometimes you lose the ability to shift gears. It only works in odd or even gears. Usually what happens is because it's overheating. So one thing that I always recommend is to change out your DCT fluid if you haven't done it in 100,000 miles, maybe even less than that. I did mine about 15,000 miles ago, and I have a video on how to change out the fluid and all the filters, as well as refilling it properly to up to spec. I haven't had any issues with the DCT. It's actually been very reliable for me, and I hope that it continues to stay that way, knock on wood. All right, so this is the hardtop mechanism halfway open, just so I can show you what to change here. So this string right here was fraying, especially when it was connecting down to this section right over here. So you can see this string was fraying, and same on the other side. So what I had done was I replaced this string, which was, I think it was like $35 or $36, connecting from here and then just kind of following the line all the way up to somewhere up here. So this string, make sure you check it, because this is a pretty common issue on hardtop convertibles, E93s, this string fraying over time. And any fraying that you see, you should definitely change it out immediately, because if this snaps, what happens is you can damage all the liners, these things and these things right here. This can damage all the liners as well as the roof itself right around here. I do also get occasional rattles from the hardtop when the hardtop is up. When it's down, you don't hear any rattling, but when it's up, it's rattles. So that's something that you just have to get used to as a convertible owner with a hardtop. You can fix a lot of those rattle issues if you follow the video guides from a channel that I'll recommend called Savage Motor Gears. And he has plenty of content on how to fix rattles as well as leaks on your hardtop convertible roof. And I might actually do some of those DIYs soon and film the process. But for now, it doesn't bother me much. Eventually I'll get to that point where I will address those issues and I'll film the process for you guys. Overall, the hardtop convertible is one of the most reliable parts of this car, and I highly recommend it. Haven't had any issues, major issues with these, and if this is one of the deterrents for you buying one of these cars, I don't think it should be. It's very reliable and it looks great. So we're under the trunk liner now of an E93 M3. And for the E93, you can tell if your fluid is low by looking at that plus sign there and the line of the hydraulic fluid. So mine is a little low and I'll need to fill that up because it's below the plus sign. I'm gonna go ahead and make a video on how to fill that up later down the line. But yeah, the hydraulic fluid level is below the plus sign, so we should fill that up or top it off a little bit. There's also these two salmon colored relays here. If you have issues with your hardtop convertible, sometimes operating on and off, whether it's trying to close the top or open the top, try changing these out first, because these are very inexpensive and easy to access to change out. So far I haven't had any issues yet, but I know these are the first things I'll change out if I ever do have issues. So that's most of the issues and reliability experience that I've had with this E93 M3. After 3 years of ownership, lots of research and lots of DIY, do-it-myself repairs and modifications to this car, I can say it's one of the most reliable cars I've ever had. Compared to my previous car, the Jaguar F-Type, this one is a lot more reliable than the Jaguar. So if you are deterred from buying this car just because of the rod bearing issues and the throttle actuators, just know that once you get those issues fixed, you'll never have to worry about anything else again, because the other parts of the car are simple to work on and also not too expensive to fix. I have a lot of videos on how to do these, DIY videos as well as modification videos. So hopefully those videos can help you save some money and also educate you on how to do these yourself instead of going to an expensive shop. So I'm gonna do another video next time, a separate video on all the modifications that I've done to this car. A lot's changed since the last time I did a mod list video. So hopefully you guys can stick around for that, and I'll break down everything that's been done to this car. This is pretty much the final iteration of this build. Not much else that I think of doing. I don't want to supercharge it because I like keeping the NA sound and performance, and also I feel like it's just too expensive for a car like this. It's already really enjoyable as a naturally aspirated car. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like this kind of content, please like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a good afternoon.